Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to season 2 of Conversations in Pop Culture, where I have with me comic creator, writer, artist, inker, and publisher Greg Harms. So, welcome to the show because I've been wanting to do this forever.
Thank you. Yeah, we've been talking about it for a while, so it's finally good to get on here.
Yeah, we've been talking about it for almost like 8 months now. So I'm very excited because you got a lot of stuff going on with Third Empire, and obviously there's a Kickstarter that you're publishing that you're a part of, Mojo Rising. No talking about Travis Gibb. We just don't talk about him. He's just really, that Cthulhu stuff. Now, I love Travis. I want to make that clear.
He's great. He's helped us out a lot.
And then obviously Travis knows I'm going to take that shot. So obviously, if you don't know who Travis Gibb is, go look up Travis Gibb. But anyway, I want to talk about everything that's sort of going on and what is Third Empire Studios, because I think that's the best place to start, because it's doing a lot of stuff and it's publishing a lot of stuff. And I know you have a long history in comics.
We do. I guess to really tell you what Third Empire is, we need to go back to when we founded it. It was Roman Morales III and I back in 2006. And Roman had brought me on to color his work, and he sent me pages. And I ended up on the back of them, because he always drew on both sides of the paper. So on the back of them were some unfinished, uninked stuff. So I inked that, and then I ended up being his inker. And 6 months later, we ended up working for Blue Water Productions, doing 10th Muse 800. And then we just kind of went from there, and I became a partner in Third Empire Studios with Roman.
So we're going to talk a little bit about that because I think it's super interesting. So what was the comic scene like in 2006? Because there were companies like Zenescope starting to pop up. Obviously Top Cow was becoming bigger. Image was starting to make waves in the industry, and indie was starting to shift a lot. And it's obviously not 2017, 2018, 2019 indie, but this was, I feel, the start of indie starting to come about. I know that you were involved, and you got involved in the comic industry in the late 80s and doing some indie stuff. And that was a whole different beast. And 2006 is a different beast.
There's been a lot of change since I started back when I was, I basically started doing comics when I was in 7th or 8th grade. So that would have been 82 or something like that. It started out on, we were on MySpace. Luckily the internet had been kind of taken off, or I would have been creating in a bubble. Me and Roman always joked that it was the MySpace dating service that hooked us up. It wasn't, but anyway, we always joked about that.
And to even go further into this, because obviously you were creating stuff, inking stuff, and then come 2006, what was the entire comic industry like? Because we had the entire crash in 1999, 1998. Obviously, people have books, and they bought cartons of books that are worth like 10 cents now on it because Sony were printed. Obviously, a lot of stuff sort of happened with Malibu Comics, and then I guess comics started. Marvel survived bankruptcy. And obviously comics started coming back in 2006. I think Civil War was starting to come around with Marvel, and comics as a whole started to shift, and indie started to shift with it. And then you formed a publishing studio with Roman, and obviously that friendship. And what was that like in forming that, and where did that idea even come from? Because that's a unique concept back in 2006.
It was really just it was just organic. It just... because of our friendship, we decided to take off with our own projects, and we joined. I joined the Third Empire. And then Keith Braun, we brought him on as a letterist. So it was just basically kind of an organic flow to the stuff because we were already producing our own work. Roman had his. We were redoing his. Lynch Mob that originally...
We're going to get to that. I promise.
So we were working on, our own projects. And so that it just kind of organically grew from there as a publishing company.
And then obviously, let's get to Lynch Mob, because Lynch Mob was originally published in the 90s from Chaos Comics.
Right.
And Lynch Mob is a crazy story. We got a bunch of ragtag, unlikely heroes, super team, essentially,
Right.
tracking down a bunch of bad guys and a bunch of bad creatures. And it's crazy. And in many ways, it was ahead of its time in the
It really
90s.
was. It was the in your face, and it was ahead of its time, but it was behind. It was also a '90s throwback to in your face, punch them in the, just in your face, punching.
It
Not a
wasn't
hero.
soft, is how I describe it.
It was
When you look at it, it wasn't a soft book,
no.
and then and it's not PC correct, and I
Right.
think people really like that, and then people like that in 2006. I like it now in 2021. I like things that are raw, that are gritty, that there's some bad people, and well, you got to take care of them out any which way you can. And so, what was that like, getting to work on a book that was from the 90s, I guess, getting control of it, taking it back from a company that wasn't no longer interested or went out of business or became defunct, and then saying, hey, we're going to do this right, but we're going to reboot it, also keep some of what was already done and put it out there. Because that's kind of cool when you get your baby back and say, hey, this publisher wanted us to do A, B, C, and D, and we want to be like B and C in this. We got to change A and D in it, and we're going to do it the right way, and we're going to do it the better way. And obviously, both of you were better at inking and artistry and writing and all that stuff at the same time. You could fix those mistakes.
Well, Roman loved getting it back. If he hadn't have passed away in 2018, we actually had eight issues drawn, and he had went back and redrawn issue 1 through 4, and he was in the middle of issue 4 when he passed away. Otherwise, you would have had another Rock'em Sock'em in your face 90s throwback, just a throwdown of superheroes and all these bad guys.
And what is that like? Because it is nice to go back to an era when comics, some of them were good in the 90s and some of them were horrendous. But even that drawn out, just fighting style, I'm a big Japanese anime fan and manga fan. And there's certain shows that I always go back to that are those drawn out, hour-long fights. And it's just like, how much power can we go in? And you just go bigger and bigger. And it's like, at the end of the fight, everybody's bloodied up.
Right.
And I love it. And I love it because it's just raw and it's just given to me and there's nothing being held back. And that's what this comic is. It's kind of nice. I'm a big Zenesco fan. It's good girl cheesecake art. And I know exactly what it is. And I love it. I just backed the product of Double Impact. There is full frontal nudity in that book. And I love it. I love it. I think it's great because it's brilliant. And it's just so like, we're not playing PC anymore. And what is that like to have, I guess, the perimeters off and get to do what you want to do and actually tell stories and not have to worry about being appropriate?
Well, we tell the stories, and a lot of the stories had some kind of moral to them anyway. It may have been, they may have been all bloodied up and beat to a pulp or whatever, but at the end of it, they were still standing. And they were still moving forward. They were still a team, and they were, and you talked about the scenes and how you like the manga and all that. Roman, his splash pages, he loved those because he built up, and then all of a sudden you had a splash page that had every one of like the Lynch Mob, the bad guys, and every one of them was engaged, or somebody was. One of the like the shark might be ripping somebody in half, and somebody might be getting punched and bashing into a car, or somebody might be getting hit with a telephone pole. It's just the old kind of the 90s bash them up type in your face stuff. So.
And I love it. I love the entire concept. I love what I've seen of it. I love the first issue that I've read. I haven't gotten my hands on the other stuff. I'm not going to pretend, but what I've read of it, I love it, and I love and I think it holds up really well today. I think things like this, hit a need, and there isn't this stuff out there, and it's starting to come back in a lot of ways.
Right.
And it's nice to get some of this stuff, back in the 90s, and then getting to redo it, and I love it. And then obviously,
back then, Brian Pulido was just getting started. Roman was just getting started. They were doing those conventions in California. They were doing, all of that. They're pimping out their work, all that. That was when that 90s good girl, bad girl movement was getting started. Roman
Some
was right
double
there
impact.
with Brian Plato with it.
Ricky Carlino was part of that group back in that with Double Impact. That was selling 1 million copies in
Greg
the 90s.
Capullo did covers on it.
Who did covers?
1 through 3 are Greg Capullo covers, and then Roman's is number 4 on that
And
original.
so what is that like to even catch people who then went on to DC and get people involved and then having those and giving, because nobody knew who Greg was at that point.
Right.
So even to do that and get people like that in there, because that stuff, it's really cool when you go back and you catch somebody like a young 20-year-old artist doing some of this stuff, and it's awesome.
Yeah, and it doesn't really look like his work right now. I mean, you can see the beginnings of it. And when me and Roman were talking about doing the book, we wanted to possibly get Greg Capullo to do an alternate cover for it. And it never panned out. And of course, Roman died in 2018. And that's when I stepped into the publishing role of Third Empire. So
we're going to talk a little bit about that. So I'm going to say this. I'm going to throw this out there. If I want to get Greg for an interview, I know the exact path now how to do it. Find one of those early books, get it graded, sneak my thing in. Because whenever you bring somebody something old and old school, they always say yes. It's amazing. It's the oldest trick in the book to getting interviews. It's awesome. I brought David Finch a really cool book of Cyberforce that he did back, that he only worked on a few pages, and like he's flipping through it in front of like a line of like 50 people behind me. He's like, no. He's like to everybody behind me, you guys can wait. It's a really funny thing. And he drew something on my book for free. It's awesome. I was getting graded. Really cool story. But we're going to talk about you stepping into the publishing realm in a second, but I do want to talk about Midnights as well, because that's basically Star Wars with 250 characters and like freaking galactic war empire meets Game of Thrones. Pretty much thrown into a blender, and everybody started going hard. And it's turned up to an 11. That's how I describe Midnights. And so what was that like working on that book? Because that's another book that is very similar to Lynch Mob in a lot of ways. And it takes, really, if you like Star Wars, that's an amazing book.
The Midnights we're going to be putting out later. I'm actually in the process of coloring it. And I've gathered up all the artwork that Roman had done for it, the connecting covers, the original covers, the original pinups. I actually found, because I thought I'd lost the script. It wasn't anywhere digitally. Luckily, I'd printed it out so that he and I could go through the pages at one of the conventions we were at together. And I found that printout.
So what is that like? Because this is something that I think that people don't understand, is that now everything is digital. Now people have hard drives. People have the cloud. You back stuff up. Yeah. I would imagine that if you're working on a comic script for a company or for your own company, every day, if you stop, you're just having writer's block, you back that shit up real quick, right?
Well, when I thought I lost it, I thought, well, I guess we can print the book in black and white without any words, have it as a silent film type thing. When I found that, it was such a relief, because now we can actually give a more complete vision of what Roman was.
And also, I would imagine as well that it's also a sign of respect and the fact that you're getting to put, his words in there, that you're getting to actually put what was written before and pay respect and actually do what it's supposed to be in this entire thing, and actually deliver the true story of what he intended it for it to look like, or completed. And obviously that must have been, oh man, thank God I found this type of moment.
I mean, it was 2 years after I thought I'd lost it, after Roman passed, and then I actually found it, because I found it at the end of last year. So it'd been 2 years since, and I was going through some old notebooks and found it. I'll be honest, I sat there and I cried. Because this is my friend's, his work that his printout of what he wrote. So I'm assuming what you found, you like retyped it up real quick, right? I have it I have it in just like I found it, and then in the next few weeks, months, I'm going to get it typed up and get it to the letterist along with all the black and whites, and we're going to present a black and white version of it. And then when I finish the colors, we'll have a color version of it, and then those will go to Kickstarter.
And so, what is that like to get to push this out and redo it and get it all done and get the complete version, because it is something that is kind of cool. And I don't know when Midnight was conceived, but obviously it's been a long road to get it to where it is, and it's very cool the fact that you have now got the opportunity to do something that was, and for lack of a better word here, sort of dead on arrival to now being alive and well again and to getting out there again. Because it's a very cool thing when things change and then something comes back into play with a comic.
Yeah, because I didn't think we were going to be able to do it in the version that we're going to be able to. So to know and see that we're going to be able to do that and honor Roman's memory by getting that work out is, it's pretty special. It's pretty awesome.
And also, it's just an amazing story on that. And obviously, when you do a bunch of interviews, this is the story to tell about how well, the idea was sort of dead in the water, and now it's back alive, and now we get to honor, his memory, and that, it's just luck was on your side in many ways, and that Faith wants this book to be published in many ways, and that this book actually probably means more now, because this book, technically, and all the odds were most likely against you to make this not happen.
It was because the computer I had the original script on was dead. I didn't have anything else, and his kids couldn't find it on his computer. So so to see that was pretty awesome. We also have two other books that he had drawn.
We're going to talk about that in a second too, because I want to talk about the art, because also there's a bunch of art that's his. Obviously, the connecting covers are going to be very, very cool, and it's awesome when you get the opportunity to revive art that hasn't been out there, and that this is going to be the first time, and that art is super limited, and that stuff is awesome. And then obviously there's original art that's associated with that, and that's cool too with this book, and that makes that more special in many ways as well. And so what is that like to get to re-see this art and get to fully, say, oh man, this is his art, and now we're publishing it out there. Now we get to share it with people who are fans of him back from, 17 years ago. I think or 15 years ago. My math is really bad. I'm not a mathematician.
Well, it actually has been in the process. He had started it in 2006, a few pages, but he had a habit of redrawing stuff. I know I have at least 2 or 3 pages that I know of that he drew 3 or 4 times. So he had just stacks of artwork, but he always wanted to make it better. And if he redrew it, it was usually better. And he had finished drawing that in 2017 because he did some redraws, and we were actually planning on launching it in 2018, along with the Lynch Mob, the 8 issues of Lynch Mob, with the issue of Alien Skies, and with the issue of Eternal Curse. So we were going to have about 400 or 500 pages of his art coming out that year. Now we can't do the Lynch Mob because it was right in the middle of issue 4 that he passed away. So to be able to do these other books is pretty awesome. We can still get, Alien Skies is like 64 pages. Midnight's is 36 pages, I think. Eternal Curse is 32 at least. So there's going to be quite a few pages still that we can get out. And, his kids and his wife still have have stacks of his dinosaur books that he wanted to put together, of his fantasy artwork books that he wanted to put together. So maybe eventually we'll do some of those. I'll need to talk to Karen again and see where she's at on that, and if she actually wants that to be done. So even though we're publishing what might be his last stuff that I have, his wife and kids still have a bunch more that we might could even publish through the years going forward. You know,
And that's really cool in a lot of ways, because obviously when somebody has a lot of material and obviously they might not know what all that material is, and that's sort of cool as well, where there's a bunch of material that you do know what it is, and then there's this entire concept where, well, where, you know, if people really like this stuff, you know, there's always the possibility of just putting together an art book of his as well and just picking out certain things. And I don't know if the thought occurred, or maybe it's a little too raw to say it, but, you know, maybe, you know, even just a best of, and people can read like the first
a memoriam of him. Yeah.
and something like that, or even just half a lynch mob, or things like that as well, because there's always a bunch of stuff that can be done. And so it's very cool to that degree that the guy has a lot of content, and that, you know, there's a boatload of art, and you're taking it nice and slow, and obviously you're doing the complete projects first, and you're getting to do, you know, Eternal Curse and Alien Sky and all that stuff. And obviously people are probably very excited because Third Empire Studios has done a lot of work, and obviously there's a lot of things that I'm interested in this stuff, because there's a lot of fans from the 90s, and indie comics has evolved, and now people want that old stuff, and they want to read that old stuff, and they want to
Yeah,
read
I still get people coming up to me at conventions and going, "Oh, that's the so and so," and yep, it is. You know, they still recognize it.
Because for people who don't know, and I don't have the list in front of me, but you did some stuff, I think, for Marvel back in the day with like a few inks. You've done stuff for all these like Kangaroo Court or something like that. And like there's a variety of stuff that you've done that is so obscure that, like, I don't know who knows of it. And I don't know half the titles you've done, but you've been around forever. And obviously, if you just go through a bin of 80s comics and 90 comics and early 90 comics, somebody's going to find something that you were a part of.
Maybe I did a lot of indie stuff, so if you find some of my stuff, it's probably going to be more obscure. You know,
if you
I've
go,
always been on the fringe of stuff. So,
but even still, it's the idea that you have done a lot of crazy projects, and I don't mean crazy as in like mental hospital crazy, but things that are obscure and out there. And obviously, it's kind of crazy. And then obviously now you're becoming more mainstream. And obviously, I love it. And then obviously, Dead Zone is another one that's fun. And I like Dead Zone. Dead Zone is definitely my cup of tea.
yeah.
Where, you know, I love
Keith Braun, our letterist, is the writer on that one. So that's it. That's his baby.
That is my cup of tea, when you have a soldier who's a one-man hit army that basically winds up in a situation that is deems dire and should die, and he doesn't, or she doesn't. That is my cup of tea as a reader. And then Rex Havoc, and then everybody's like, how did this happen? That's my cup of tea. So I enjoyed that book. And I just think that book is just fun. And I like those types of stories where all hell breaks loose.
Right. That one is a fun one. And that was a fun one to work on.
And so I like that book, and I just like the concept of it. And then obviously there's just a bunch of other stuff that's being put out there, and I'm sure we could talk about this all day. And so obviously I do want to talk about the other side of this, because people sometimes forget that comics are a business. It is a complicated business. I know, because I'm in the middle of dealing with my own version of comic business that I can't talk too much about at the moment, but it's coming, and it's definitely more on the selling side of things. But obviously, Roman passes away, and then you were a partner in Third Empire Studios. And what happened that positioned you? Because I don't think you were the publisher at that point. Or you didn't have those responsibilities. So when did you pick up those responsibilities, and what was that like? Because it's a very different learning curve than just being an inker or a colorist or a writer. It's a lot more responsibility, and there's a lot more trades that have to be utilized as a publisher versus, you know, just a writer and producing a book.
Right. Well, you know, I've always kind of had my own company anyway. So I when I stepped in with Roman, I kind of behind the scenes, I kind of did that anyway. and after he passed away in 2018, I actually had taken a year off, and I didn't know which direction we were going to be going. I didn't know even if I was going to be in comics after that. And then I approached his family, and they basically said, yeah, we would be honored that you step in and take over as publisher. And that was in 2020. And so in 2020, I kind of kicked off what Roman and I had been talking about doing, which is becoming a small publishing empire.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
I got to slide that in there.
You wanted to use that pun for a while, didn't you?
Yeah, I've been waiting on that. That's on my notes over here. Anyway, so so in doing that, then we some of the guys that we've worked with in the past have kind of stepped up and said, hey, this book will fit into what you're doing. And I had I had actually designed Mojo Rising, and so that was one book that I helped kickstart and publish. We're doing the Creative Nights anthology that's going to be kickstarted here next month. And then my own projects.
Yeah.
So
I don't want to get too far ahead, because obviously I do want to talk about the publishing side. So obviously you've run companies, you've got a newspaper, and you've done things like that. But 2020 hits, COVID hits, wrecks every Comic-Con, wrecks a lot of stuff. Nobody knows what the hell's going on in America for pretty much the first 9 months of 2020.
I started a publishing company.
Exactly. And then obviously nobody knew how, Kickstarter was going to react. And Kickstarter got very interesting in a lot of ways. And I know and I'm not too sure how you feel about this person. And I love this person, Tom Hutchinson.
Oh, yeah.
From Big Dog. I love it. I've
known Tom for years.
I love Tom. I think Tom is great. Tom's been good to me. He's been on twice. Some people, they go one way or the other. I get it. But one of the things that he was explaining to me is that in 2020, more projects got funded and there was a higher success rate with more people being on and more projects happening. Now, those projects might have only been asking for $500. And then the other thing about that, which I don't know, is the concept of, well, if a project was doing 30,000 and had a goal of 20 and it only did 25,000, did more projects get funded, but is there lesser of a goal that they reach their funds raised? And those are legitimate questions, because Kickstarter can be measured on a lot of ways. So how did you react to Kickstarter? Because I don't know if this was your first round on Kickstarter, or what was that like? Because that was very much, nobody knew how it was going to react, and a bunch of people held off. And it's very interesting what happened, because now, today, there are less projects on Kickstarter, and the success rate of funding on Kickstarter is less.
We kickstarted. That was the first one we kickstarted, and the Mojo Rising #1, and we reached funding in 45 minutes, and then we went on to go to the $4,200, and our initial goal was $1,500. So we did really well in 2020. This one we did this year, we've actually done more than that one with actually less people. And I think 2020 did kind of have more people were there on the computer wanting to get something to make them forget all the craziness in the world.
Also,
so I think that may have been more of the backers that we had.
And also people in 2020 were more content hungry, because when you're home, you're more into video games, you're more into movies, you're more into watching Netflix.
The entertainment or the release from reality, yeah.
And also a lot of people working from home, and now you have an extra 2 hours in your day. And it sounds crazy, but all of a sudden that's an extra 10 hours in your week.
Yeah.
Because you're not driving to work anymore. Or it is, you might even have more than that, because you're not driving to work, you're not going out to dinner, and now you have a lot more time, and you realize that, oh snap, it's 8 o'clock and I accomplished a lot today. Because
we had a captive audience.
So, and also I think a lot of people are saying, okay, also DC Marvel stopped producing for a few months, and that A, helped comic shops, and B, people got caught up on comics, and then C, people were like, well, I want new stories, and well, Kickstarter is the answer to go to because this seems interesting, and that also helped. And obviously, that's sort of what I think happened in 2020. And then also, this is my next question: is that do you find that lower goals get you there faster because it seems that lower goals are more attainable? Because when I see a project is already funded, I get more interested in saying, okay, now I know because when I buy a Kickstarter, back a Kickstarter, and there's 25 days left and it's $60, that money's already budgeted for me. And if I don't know if that project is going to fail or succeed, I get very nervous because that means I can't back another project because that money's already gone, even though I wasn't charged for it, but it has to be accounted for. But when I know a project is already funded, I can then account for it, if that makes any sense.
It does. I don't know. I think that could go both ways. Because you could get in trouble as a publisher if you set your goal too low. We were willing to take that chance on the first one and set our goal at 1,500. And if anybody saw that, when we stacked that with all kinds of goodies, but our printing, it took everything we made with the 4,200 printing and shipping. It took every bit of that. So on this one, I didn't want to quite take that same risk. So I raised our minimum to the $3,000. It took longer to get there. I mean, it probably took 2 weeks to get there instead of the 45 minutes, which is a little bit more nerve-wracking. But that means that we don't have that risk of not being able to cover printing and shipping and so there's two ways to look at that. And you make a good point that it if you see it and you see, oh, it's already funded, you're going to be more willing to maybe do that. So yes and no, we kind of have to balance that. I mean, because really I should have set our goal at 4,000.
And even to talk further about that, one of the things, and I'm not going to mention who because I don't want to put somebody on blast, but I backed the Kickstarter. It was $15 for a regular cover, and the goodies on it was $5 shipping, so it was $20. And I'm going to mention somebody else in a minute, and I'm more of a positive light. But what wound up happening is that there was like minimal goodies, and I was like, there's no value to this. Like I'm taking a risk. And when somebody stacks up a Kickstarter with a bunch of goodies, so Tom from Big Dog Inc. just did the Ozma series. I just got my first book. So I backed a $25 variant. There was a poker chip, 2 metal cards in there. There was a magnet. There was a trading card. And then there was a backer appreciation book in there because we reached a certain goal. And this was a $25 Kickstarter with shipping included. And I'm saying to myself, like, I just backed somebody's Kickstarter for $20 with shipping, and I backed his for 25, and one of them provided me a hell of a lot more value than the other. And now, as a person, I'm not going to that person who I felt didn't provide me value, and I didn't even think their book was that great. And I think they've done better work with other projects, and I'm like, so I need a good story, and then I need some goodies that make me feel like I'm appreciated for taking a risk. Because $20, I can go to my local comic shop, pick up 4 Marvel books, and know exactly what I'm getting.
Yeah.
And so how do you feel about that? Because I do think.
Oh, I agree with that. I mean, I think just like on the first one, we stacked that full of goodies. Even though we have just a few less goodies on this one, but we also have almost a 60-page book. So it's twice as big as a regular size book. You 24 pages or whatever.
But I also feel that the goodies have to be on the first issue, because once you get me into that first issue, I'm more likely to come back for the second issue because I want to know what the rest of the story looks like. So I don't need as many goodies on the second issue as I do on that first issue to take that risk.
Well, we're still giving a lot of goodies away. I mean, we're still hitting our stretch goals. I mean, we just unlocked the Mojo Moolah. We just unlocked, let's see, random sketch cards were inserted when we hit 1,500. Beads were given out at 3,000. A print was given out at 3,500. At 4,000, we have the Mojo Moolah. But we also do milestones, which are backer counts when we get certain number of backers, and that unlocks certain things. So we've done some giveaways on that. And so we're still doing the same basic thing as what we did with the other one. We just stretched that first goal out a little ways.
And I think it's so important because that's what gets me excited is that it's kind of like, if you're going to charge me $15 for a book, it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a Zenescope fan, so
Yeah.
their variants go from $20 to $25.
Yeah.
And I buy and sell their books, and I know I can make money on it, and I like variants, and I got no problem paying for a variant. But if I'm paying for a variant on an indie publisher, and I understand that you don't have, as an indie publisher and a Kickstarter, you have the same funds that a company that just sold over 15 million books has. I get it, and I'm very, very understanding. But you got to make it so that, like, there's something in there that's bigger than just the book. Especially for a regular cover, $15 is very expensive. And I'm not saying that I know how much it costs to print a book. I'm entering that space now, and I can't go too much into detail, but I know exactly how much it costs to print prints. I know what these costs are. So I'm very sensitive to it, but at the same time, and I got no problem spending money, but you got to give me those goodies. And I need something that makes me feel that.
Well, I mean, you want to have the value. I mean, it's really about value. Do you feel like what you're spending on my Kickstarter, I'm giving you the value back? And we always hope, I mean, that's our plan. That's what we try to do. The first book was 36 pages, I believe, with it had backup story. This one's going to be close to 60 pages, 51 pages of the main story. And then I have a backup story in there. So you're looking at almost 60 pages. There's going to be an Ashcan edition that's a 12-page, that's in there. So, just page count. Plus, we give you the bookmarks, the prints, the different stickers, and different things like that are being unlocked and then being unlocked with the milestones.
My favorite thing in a Kickstarter is two things. I love metal cards and I love magnets. I love magnets because I use magnets.
Yeah.
Like I like coasters.
We had magnets on the first one.
I love coasters, magnets, and metal cards. Those are my three favorite items in Kickstarters as rewards because I utilize them extensively. And so I like that stuff. I like bonus comic books as well. But obviously to even go further into Mojo Rising here. So one of my favorite things that you did with this, and I don't know whose idea it was, is with Travis. You guys have a matching cover set, and that's a really
number one. Travis actually had approach us on it with the connecting covers.
Yeah,
with Voodoo Nation and Mojo Rising. If they would have been kickstarting the next Voodoo Nation, which is coming up, so if you like the Voodoo Nation, go ahead and hit that notify me because they're about to kickstart their second one. But yeah, Travis had approached us and said, "Hey, we'd like to cross promote." And then Luke Stone threw together the artwork. I inked it, and then I forgot the colorist. I always do that. Anyway, he colored it up real quick, and we threw it on there. I mean, we had like 10 days left or 14 days left on the crossover. So we promoted the heck out of it. And Travis really helped us on the first one with that cross promotion. And then he helped us on this last one by spreading the word on it. So I can't say enough about Travis that, he's a stand-up guy, and he's really helped us a lot.
Oh, he's great, and he's pumped me up too. And his favorite thing, and Chuck Pino too, is that Andrew's a really good interviewer. He has a secret technique. He actually does his research.
Yeah.
So I always appreciate that. And it's this new concept, guys, of called doing your homework on people. I know. Generic interviews, they're fun and all, but it's really important to actually dive into stuff. So obviously, though, I love this connecting cover. I don't know if they're all sold out now on the Kickstarter.
We have, I think, 5 left.
I might be snagging one of those. You know, my mom will kill me. When
We actually have an add-on or a tier on this one, but that's all that's left because Travis is sold out, and
and
that's
so
what's left of our stuff.
I might be snagging something on that, but yeah, I gotta go check my bank account first, as I'm not making any promises. But if I get it, I'm definitely gonna be posting it on Instagram for everybody. They're really cool because I love connecting covers. I love J. Scott Campbell's Spider-Man 700 and Superior Spider-Man Mary Jane connecting cover, which is awesome in its own right. But that's not about you, so we're gonna drop it. And obviously, Mojo Rising 2 is coming out. And well, it's kind of getting fun with what's going on, where basically somebody wants revenge. Ringo wants revenge on Mojo.
Yep.
And Ringo basically got an ancient, powerful artifact and should be dead, but they're not. and it's on like Donkey Kong.
Yep.
So what can people expect with this?
Well, Ringo, he likes to take people's heads. So we actually have a tier where you can back the tier and you could be drawn on the cover. There's 4 spots. You could actually be drawn as a head on a spike. So there's only 4 spots. So, and I think one of them's taken. So just 3 spots left, but you can be drawn. But Ringo likes to take the head of his victims or of his people that go up against him, of his opponents, of his the people he doesn't like or whatever. Or if they look at him crossways, he'll, he's a crazy guy. And Mojo and he used to be friends. And through a series of events, he got trapped in a temple that had collapsed. He was kept alive by a relic that was in there. And then when the big war released the magic, which you saw in #1, the release of the magic went flooding back to its origin. Well, it caused a flux in the magic, which awoken a Ringo and actually granted him more powers. So that's where we step in with issue 2.
And
Ringo's coming after Mojo.
And it sounded like Donkey Kong. Is all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say. I've obviously read Mojo Rising 1. I know what happens. I don't know what happens in issue 2, but it's on. And it's going to be a very interesting fight with Mojo and Mojo's team of unlikely allies, for lack of a better word here. And so I don't want to ruin too much of what's going on, but it's going to get good in New Orleans.
It is. And I have to mention that, Manuel Soto drew it. Raj, Artex colored it. Raj and Manuel co-plotted it, and we brought on Damian Starr to do the scripting on it. And then Damian is actually going to stay on with us and work on all of the Mojo Rising properties and kind of keep things in, keep everything in order, from Juju to the Mojo to any spinoffs to the origin with Jim O'Reilly. So he has kindly stepped in and is helping working with those other guys. We have Keith Braun on doing letters on those. So it's pretty cool. The art team is pumped, and the book is. I think there's 9 pages left to draw on the 50 pages. So by the time this is done, it should be ready to send off not too long after that, by the time we get the money from Kickstarter. And then if we can get another 250, we'll unlock a cool something else. But I just have to tease it. I can't unlock it yet. So
to even go further, because I just want to table that before we get into some rewards, and just go through that really quickly. One of the things also is that this is with Outlaw Studios.
It is.
This is a joint project.
It is.
By Rock, I forget. I don't know how to pronounce his name. I'm really bad, but it's his studio is, I think, Outlaw Studios.
Right, Mohan. Yeah, the way that Third Empire is set up is it has studios. It's kind of like the early Image kind of setup, to where you have the studios underneath the Third Empire banner, or you have Early Image Studios under the I, you know, so
Yeah.
you have Central, you have, and then you have the, Top Cow, you have all the other ones, Wildstorm, and
and then you have also other studios under Image that people don't know about, that they don't understand. Certain artists just have their own studios. Like Michael J. Straczkowski has his own thing under Image, which most people have no idea that exists.
Right.
It's actually super interesting what's under Image. Very, very interesting company. So it's obviously set up in very much a almost like a holding company, and then all the other companies are owned by people themselves, but obviously give branding back to Third Empire, and that Third Empire handles sort of the front office.
Right. Yeah, and each of those guys own their own copyrights. They control the studios and what they want to publish. The Creative Nights is going to be another Kickstarter that's going to be next month, which is another studio that's under the Third Empire banner. So, I work with these guys to get these cool projects out, these cool ideas out, their passion out.
And so one of the things that's going on, and the reason why I wanted to bring this up is that obviously in the big billion-dollar world of media, Disney conglomerate, AT&T is spinning off Warner Media in a 71% new company with Discovery. Obviously, Viacom with Paramount Network and Nickelodeon is going that way. And it seems to me that collaborations and I don't know what not mergers, but almost companies forming under banners is going to be the future as a competitive way to push out. Because if all these studios, and you got 4 or 5 studios under the Third Empire Studios banner, but they're still their own publishers, they're not competing anymore with each other. And now
they're actually helping each other.
Exactly. And so now you're eliminating competition and helping each other out. And you're also helping each other out with knowledge and a variety of other stuff, because there's just not only, hey, I'm not competing with your Kickstarter, but there's a knowledge share aspect to it. And that, to me, seems that that's the way of the future, is big conglomerates and little conglomerates. And I said it on another podcast, but I'm expecting indie and everything else for that matter to go down that route. I mean, I'm going to be more or less going down that route eventually, because I'm in the process in the next 5 years building a holding company for that very reason, where I have a front office and a bunch of sub companies underneath, because I understand where that's going. And so that, to me, is that I'm expecting that to be the new indie in the next 3 to 4 years. I said it with people who did the zombie game and that graphic novel, and I'm saying it again, where it seems to me that this is the way it's going to go. And we see this with other projects like the Comic Roadshow and what they're doing with podcasting in a variety of ways, in comics and things like that. So I don't know how you feel about that.
Well, I mean, that's me and Roman had set it up like this back when he was alive. This is the structure, the hierarchy that we wanted was the umbrella
ahead of the top in many ways, because that's what it seems like in 2021. And big corporate media and big corporate conglomerates, legitly, I mean, the AT&T thing is the biggest news, and that was announced on Monday. So we are 3 days out of a $200 billion company announcing. I mean, if that doesn't affect indie, I don't know what will. But it seems
I'm small, but I kind of have it set up similar to that. So I mean,
it seems that
if you can scale it, then you can grow.
It seems. I'm just saying, it seems like the future, because it seems like such a smart idea, and it seems that more people need to copy this, because I don't think that without conglomeration, indie is going to survive.
I don't want people copying it. I want to be successful and not.
I want you to buy companies up. That's what I want.
I don't. I'm not headed that way.
That's my goal. I'm letting everybody know.
You can do that. I'm not going to do that. It's a big headache.
I'm interested in buying percentages of companies.
Well, That might be a way to go. You buy into where you're a silent stockholder or whatever, and then you're getting money from doing that. That might be the way to go. But buying whole companies would be a headache for me.
Oh, no. My entire plan is buy companies, let the people who run them keep running them. I'm just going to own them.
It's step back and
I'm not going to mess with what's working. I just want to own the entire thing.
I do that.
And handle the front office. Much easier. See, I understand. I'm like the Warren Buffett. I'm going to be the Warren Buffett of indie comics.
There you go.
Just watch me do it. Just watch me do it.
There you go.
But not to back out of controversy, because I do want to talk about rewards, because I think rewards are super important. And obviously there's a bunch of stuff going on. You got some digital stuff. You get the digital issue of issue 2. You get, I think, digital issues 1 and 2.
Yes.
And you could get a physical cover A. There's a physical cover B. There's a physical cover C. I think there's a D, right? Is there an E? Is there an F? I mean, I lost track after like E.
There are, but I don't think I put them all on this Kickstarter. I think I went up to.
I think you went up to E. I know you went up to E.
Because that was the Gator cover, and that's as far as I went up for people to get caught up with. You know, but on the issue 2, there's I think F is the packed edition, which is only 4 available, and then you have the rock and roll homage, you have the Hulk homage that I'd drawn.
So what is this like to do a bunch of different variants? Because variants can be tricky. I know people have Kickstarters that have huge amounts of variants, and I like variants. I'm a variant collector. I'm a variant seller. I really enjoy comic variants. But at the same time, you know, if you're running a Kickstarter, it can be very complicated, because ordering comics can be complicated if you don't have enough interest from something, and it can get complicated in that realm. So what is that like in balancing all of this? Because it is tricky when you're dealing with it.
We try to limit it. I mean, you want to have something for the person that just wants to read, and then you want something for the casual collector, and then you want stuff for the hardcore collector. So the way I usually set up the Kickstarters is I have stuff for everybody, you know, to where they kind of stack on each other, or there's a value ladder. That way anybody can buy in at any level that they feel comfortable at. You know, and then they can add on the different stuff. I love the add-on feature that Kickstarter added. That's so handy.
I'm on the other side of this entire trade. That's why I asked this, because I am what is known as an alternative comic book investor. Right. And so I invest in comics. I invest in a lot of different comics. And one of the markets that's emerging is Kickstarter. Yeah. There is an expensive backer kit for Dawn McTeague and JP Roth's book right now, and some of those books are $400 in their backer kit, and they're limited to like 5. And so you need to actually be a backer to participate in that, and they are expensive for a reason. And obviously, people view this stuff as commodities. People view it as reading. People just say, hey, I want something super exclusive. And while I don't know the full extent of that market, because it is brand new, it is very interesting in that regard. And so obviously you're providing that, and then on top of that, you're also getting cool art for people. So what is that like? Because you want your books to go up in value.
Yeah, well, you do. And some of those that are limited, they're limited because they are one of those higher tiers. They're for the collectors, and we limited those specifically so that they don't get overprinted and devalue what the value is on them. And you always hope that whatever you do will go up in value, you know. So it's because some people do, like you said, they do invest in that as an investment, you know, whereas some of the others just want to be able to read it. So as long as I can offer everybody some kind of choice on each of those Kickstarters, then I think of that I'm doing a pretty good job on those.
And then the other thing that I like also is that there's a bunch of like trading cards, and there's a whole bunch of sets of trading cards in there. Everything.
Those are the ones from issue 1. All those right there. It's going to be hard to see them, but those are the trading cards from issue 1.
So I'm a metal card guy. I love metal cards, but I like trading cards. I love that type of stuff. Obviously, a lot of people do. For me, it's reminiscent of when I was collecting baseball cards and all that stuff, and it brings back memories. I'm 28, and I know that sports collecting is huge right now, and card collecting is crazy. I mean, I don't know if you know what's going on with Target.
Oh yeah,
they're now not selling baseball cards anymore.
Because people got crazy about it.
Legitimately safety concerns, and it's crazy. I never thought that baseball cards and football cards and Pokemon cards would be a threat ever. So it's kind of crazy with that regard. So what is that like to do trading cards?
Well, see, I came from the 90s where even before that, I was a sports card collector. I was trading cards of any kind. I collected the Marvel cards. So for me, that's something I enjoy, those trading cards. So that's why I put them in there, is because it's something that I enjoy too. Plus, it's a nice little way that you can introduce your characters with a bio on them. So I could give those away to a kid or a teenager or whatever at a con. They know the characters, and they may come back and say, "Hey, I'd like to pick up that comic book."
Or even if somebody is at a con and then you just slip it right into their book, it adds value.
Yeah.
Because there's a saying where you either have to be the cheapest, the most expensive, or the most valuable. And that adds a level of value. And adding a level of value is very important, because if somebody is giving me a free comic or free trading card with the comic, I am stoked about it. And so it changes it, or prints aren't that expensive to produce. And so if you're buying a $50 worth of comics and you throw me a print, I'm thrilled about it because it makes me feel special.
Yeah. Which, I mean, we on that first Kickstarter, we had 12 or 13 different prints. This time we don't have as many prints. We have a few more stickers, and of course we have bookmarks, the Mojo Bucks. We're giving away one of the tiers. You get one of these cool water bottles is going to be given away, which is the Gator print from Jim O'Reilly, colored by Sigmund Torrey, and inks by Jimmy Reyes. And then we have an airbrush sketch cover, and that's going to be given away as well. So I mean, we're doing these are going to be one up. They're one of a kind. That water bottle was a prototype one, and we're giving it away to one of our backers. So we try to give extras to when we can to the different things. Raj went and got some of these printed up today just to see how they look. This is the cover for the Juju Ashcan edition. This is one of the covers, the Rainbow Serpent cover, and then of course the Voodoos, which Ken Salinas contributed this. That's the cover B for the Juju Ashcan edition.
So let's talk about that too, because I know you did cover A, and then there's obviously the cover B is pretty cool. And so what was that like, doing that book and getting to do the cover on that and getting to work on it, because it does add another level to this, and obviously it's in the same theme as Mojo and everything that's going on, and now that's just another bonus thing that can be put out there, and it adds more to the story, and it's another comic out there. It's a cool project, and it's sort of snuck in there.
Yeah, the Juju Ashcans are actually talking about the Voodoo dolls, and there's actually going to be a series of those Ashcans that actually will be going through the different Voodoo dolls and certain Voodoo priest, and it's ancillary to the Mojo Rising, but it actually builds that world. And Damian Starr actually wrote issue 2, which will be on the next Kickstarter, not this one, but Raj wrote this one, and then I'm illustrating it. So, it's just a fun book to kind of throw in there that kind of builds on that world, on the whole mythos of what we're building with the story itself.
And obviously that could be picked up. It's very cool. I know you did a cover for it, you did some interior stuff for it, and obviously it just adds further to it because people love content. They love consuming content. When I get into a project, I want as much of it as possible. Again, there's the reason why I'm a big anime fan, and I like shows that have like 300 episodes. This way, I know the characters. One of my favorite series right now is Avatar: The Last Airbender because there's just so much content on it. And obviously, that's a very, very cool piece.
That's the inks on that cover. Yeah, it's anytime I get to draw anything is fun, to be honest.
And so I want to table all the rewards. I think you stated already you could be drawn into the cover, and obviously your head could be decapitated. Or if you have an ex, you could have their head decapitated, or a loved one. Now, I don't know why you would give a loved one a head decapitation. Or Father's Day is coming up. If you love or hate your father,
there's only 3 spots left.
I'm just saying, there's an option here.
It is. It's always an option. We love you. We hate you. I don't know. It's one of those.
So some people would find that to be funny. I find things to be very funny. I have a dark sense of humor.
Yeah, it kind of hits a niche market in there. Is kind of what that's hitting.
So I have obviously a dark sense of humor. If somebody got that for me as a gift, I would think it would be pretty funny.
Right.
I think it'd be pretty funny, but I digress right there. So having said all that, though, I do want to back out of the rewards, and I do want to talk about Travis once more because you got to do some broke down stuff with him, and you get to do one of the covers, I think, or maybe more than one of the covers at this point.
I just did one of the covers. So on issue 4, I did the artist edition cover.
And then I know that I think that original art could have been also purchased as well, and it's a very cool piece. Obviously, for those who haven't read Broke Down, and it's broke down in 4 Dead Bodies, I think. And so obviously it's very cool. We don't talk about it because I can't talk about it without ruining it. Issue 4 ruins the other 3 issues. It's not that I don't want to talk about it, Travis. I want to. And if you saw my interview talking about it, I avoided a bunch of stuff, and it seemed like I was ignorant. I swear to God, I wasn't ignorant because.
Well, there's so much that you could ruin by even talking about it.
Let's just say it's about a girl. It's about a girl. That already ruins half of it. Like
I know, right?
It's about a girl in prison can be fun. Let's leave it at that. It's about a girl in prison can be fun. No, depending on your interpretation of either of those things, well, there you go. That should give enough clues. But what was that like? Because obviously Travis is wrapping this up. Everything is neatly covered, and this is a cool book because an artist edition is a premium product. So you're not just doing a regular cover; you're doing something that's more premium, more gradable, has more of trying to get that 9.8, 9.9 if you're going to go get it graded type of thing to it. And so it's kind of cool when you, as an artist, I would imagine, get to do.
It's a huge honor to get for Travis to have asked me to do that. So you look at the previous artists that worked on the artist editions. You have Jim O'Reilly, and I can't remember the other 2 guys that did 1 and 2. But there's a great bunch in just the regular covers. Just to be in there in the mix of the artists that worked on the book that did the other covers and just Travis's writing, so it was a huge honor to be included in that. So it's just awesome.
And also I would imagine, and I don't know how you feel and might put you in a weird position when I ask you this, but also when your work is being charged more for, I would imagine that it's nice, whenever I get to do something and that I get to charge more money for it, it always makes me feel a little bit better because I'm like, okay, people value this at a much higher rate. And that, obviously this also has an intention, meaning the artist edition is not meant to necessarily be read. It's meant to be looked at. It's meant to be viewed more as a piece of art. versus as being read as the comic. And I also would imagine that it's sort of more respected to that degree as well, and it's treated a little bit nicer, I would imagine, as well. And that's kind of what the artist edition is meant for.
Yeah, it for me, it always makes me feel kind of strange, to be put into that place of honor, I guess, because I don't feel like I'm actually worthy to be there. The imposter syndrome crap that comes up. They're going to find out that I don't really belong, type of stuff. So really, it is an honor to have that, to be in that position, and for somebody to say, we value your art enough that we're going to put it in this particular level, and we're going to charge this much for it, and that type of stuff. So yeah, it's a huge honor, and always feel unworthy. So, but it's a nice feeling.
And also, it makes it more exclusive, because whenever you raise prices, it always knocks people out. And look, I'm not saying Travis is knocking people out, because everybody's at different economic levels. But, your book, his book, there's so many cheap options on Kickstarter if you just want to read the story or you just want a regular cover. But obviously, when you go up the tier, and it's the same thing with every other company, you could get a comic book for $50 at Marvel, or you could get the $5 book, depending on your economic situation. And naturally, there are less people at $50 than have $5, just because it's just the way it is.
Well, it raises it up into that collector level.
Yeah,
where they invest. Not only is the publisher investing in the artist, the collector or the person purchasing that is investing in that artist, and they're saying, we value that artist's art enough that we're gonna put our money down for it.
Or they value
that's a huge thing
of it. So I bought a book that I deal with a lot of books in my eBay business that are 250 print runs. That's an extremely low print run. Even if there's only 5,000 copies, a 250 print run is extremely low. I used to have the math of what that looks like if it was a variant ratio. I actually don't have it off the top of my head, but it's very low. It's very low on that front. And so obviously I value exclusivity, and this becomes more exclusive just by nature, because I don't think Travis is printing out artist editions after Kickstarters either, which means that it's also exclusive to the Kickstarter.
Yeah, what he sold and what he overprinted, and then what he printed to give to me and for himself is pretty much it, I believe. I think it's,
I'm sure
100, 250, something like that.
I'm sure he has some to sell at cons, just because that's just the way it works.
Yeah.
But I know with like Cthulhu Invades Oz, there was definitely some books that he overprinted, because obviously I would imagine he wants a few for himself, and he obviously wants to bring some stuff to conventions. And I will say this though, is that you can get all this stuff for the most part digitally, from what I understand. So if you just want to read the story, like Cthulhu Invades Oz with Travis is always available digitally, because digitally doesn't cost money to print.
Yeah.
So
I know the one I backed on his last time was the catch up with everything he's done. So I pledged to that one, and I'm going to get like 7 books or something like that. So it's going to be the complete broke down. It's going to be the Oz. It's going to be some of his other stuff he worked on. So I know he offers that on different Kickstarters, and I'm kind of stealing that from him, because I'm kind of doing that with the Third Empire, to where you can get our package of stuff on each of the next Kickstarters. So I'm stealing that from him, to where you can do a catch up with the whole thing.
Well, I don't know what I'm going to do, and I'm going to be stealing a lot of ideas from people's Kickstarters in my eBay business. But I'm going to be adapting a variety of things. But obviously, there's a lot of cool stuff, and obviously, I do want to touch upon that book, and I wanted to talk about it because I think it's super important in that regard. I know that you've worked on a bunch of different people's Kickstarters as well. I don't have the list. I feel so unprepared, and I will admit when I'm unprepared. But I know that you got a lot of stuff going on, whether you're inking somebody's stuff, or you're doing a cover for them, or you're doing some project for them, or you're just helping them to publish the book. Obviously, there's a lot of cool stuff going on with you.
And one of the things I'm really excited about is I'm working with my wife on a children's book that is going to be coming out next year. and she actually has 3 or 4 of them written. Thomas Clements is going to be doing one of them called Purple Town. I'm going to be working on one called Tangled Hair, and those are really exciting, along with the Roman books that I'm going to be putting out, and then all the guys that I'm working with on others.
Oh
but
man, you people are
it's
making me feel
exciting to work with my
small.
wife on that stuff. So.
Man, I hate interviewing all you people. You people make me feel all small. Like I'm so unproductive. I got like a page written in my book. It's terrible.
I've had a lot of years to get to this point.
I
I
have
just turned 50 this year, so I've had a few years on you.
I have 15 pages written in my book that I want to publish. That is a essay book on a particular topic, and I have been slacking. But in my defense, up to this date, this is number 69 interview wise of this year. So I have been interviewing mad, and it is May 19th.
Right. You bust your hump on getting all these interviews out. That's crazy.
Somebody said to me, "Oh man, 150. You're not going to do 150 this year," and here I am. And I'm almost halfway to 150. So it's pretty crazy what I'm doing, but man, that's crazy with everything that's coming out. So I don't want to push too hard on every other project. We just covered a lot of ground, and I feel old now. So we just went through like 40 years of history in a very short amount of time.
Yeah.
But I do want to talk about Kickstarter because obviously we've been speaking about it and a lot of interesting stuff. I am in the camp that I think everybody's allowed on Kickstarter. So Keanu Reeves, Scott Snyder, Jeff Lemire, Charles Soule, Ryan Brown. I back that Curse Words book. I love Curse Words. I think the concept is brilliant. With it, it's a beautiful book, and it's a brilliant concept. It was also cheaper than me buying it in the store. It's a $75 book for 32 issues and a nice hardcover bound. Awesome. I love the concept of it. But one of my things is that I understand, though, at the same time, when big names come onto Kickstarter, like Boom Studios raising millions of dollars for Power Rangers, Keanu Reeves doing 1.2 million, Scott doing $500,000, it does suck oxygen out of the room. In a lot of ways, I feel that it also sort of comes into the house that Indie built. And my view is that they're allowed to be on there, but there are going to be consequences for when bigger corporations and bigger names come on. And I don't know what those consequences are. That's my view. It could be good, it could be bad, but there is change coming. So I'm curious how you feel about that, because there's a lot of good, but I also think there's bad coming.
I don't know that it's bad. I think, okay, say you have Keanu Reeves, and say, I don't know how many backers he had, 2,000, whatever it was. I'd almost guarantee you that 1,000 of those had never pledged to anything on Kickstarter before, but now it's got them used to the system. It's got them used to going to Kickstarter and finding things. I think for those big names, just like in anything, big names are going to draw people to it. Whereas us as indies, we already have our kind of small market that we are exposed to. When those bigger names come in, then we have the potential to be exposed to however many backers come in and look at their project, because there's going to be a small percentage that'll just look at that Kickstarter or whatever, that project. But most of them are going to look around, say, hey, okay, I saw this Kickstarter, but hey, look at this one. This one sounds interesting. I think it actually helps build the whole system. And actually
I come at it from a different angle, where I'm a wrestling fan, and this is more what I think in my theory, and I could be completely wrong. But when celebrities come into wrestling, there's always a big spike and a big high, and then you get like a big pump up. So WrestleMania, Bad Bunny came into WWE, amazing performer, did a phenomenal job in the match. But what wound up happening is that afterwards he stuck around maybe for Monday Night Raw, but then he left. And well, now that quick fall comes out, or you have somebody like Ronda Rousey who comes in, big 6 month steam, and then she goes and leaves, and then there's a big power vacuum that ensues, and so that's
my response to that is we need to up our game for when they do leave. We give those people something to stay for. That's why we need to have our best foot forward. We need to be doing our best Kickstarters. We need to be putting out our best ideas. That way, when that vacuum does happen, those people will go and buy from us, from the indie market.
Because what's happening now is that I feel, and this is going back to what Tom was suggesting, and I don't know the full data, but what's happening now in 2021, and there could be a lot of reasons for it, but there's less projects being funded, there's less projects on Kickstarter, and there could be a million reasons why. But I felt that under the theory of Keanu Reeves and Scott Snyder and all those big names brought in, and now they're not there, there's less projects on there, there's a big vacuum of a drive to be on Kickstarter, per se. And that's the whole issue, is that there's less success now. And at this time last year, there was more success when those projects were happening. And so it's a real issue, because that's what I'm going off of. Now, I think they have a right to be there, but it's that, what do you do to drive traffic back up so that it's back up to where it was last year, unless last year was the anomaly?
My question on that is, was that number actually padded? Okay, say Keanu Reeves makes $1 million.
Yeah.
He's gone. Did the baseline numbers actually change, or did that million actually change? Because if he's not there, then there's $1 million less. But the other numbers hadn't changed.
So the number of projects that got funded has changed in the same time period. So that number, and also the whole number of those smaller projects, the success rate and the number of projects was more. It's less now, and there's less success. So there could be a lot of factors in that, but I am under the pretense that Scott Snyder drove a lot of traffic to Kickstarter. Keanu Reeves drove a lot of traffic to Kickstarter. And if all of a sudden he's driving traffic and you're running Mojo, naturally somewhere in that, somebody's going to find your project, whether it's 5 people or it's 100 people. And then now when that goes away, how do you redrive traffic? Because those people are like the lightning bolts. If somebody's like, Scott Snyder's on Kickstarter, I got to go to Kickstarter. This looks awesome. And so that's my thing, is that I feel that's a real problem that you as Kickstarter creators have to figure out, saying, okay, how do we drive traffic to our project?
Well, I mean, we need to stay connected to our fan base. I mean, that's, each one of us needs to stay connected to our fan base, and make sure that they're coming back, that we're putting out the product that they like, that we're putting out the price points that they like. It's our own responsibility. It's not really anybody else's to.
Well, I'm not saying Keanu Reeves is responsible. I'm not saying that. Yeah. I just recognize the big driver. So when I run a Facebook ad, I know it drives traffic when I get a spike in my episodes. I understand that, and then when I don't do it, and then there's a lack of a spike, I understand why. And so my whole issue is that I think it's great that they're on Kickstarter, and I agree with a lot of stuff you said. It's just now what happens when that driving big traffic source that was, I don't know if it's organic or artificial sweetener or whatever we're going to call it, but it's kind of like, okay, how do we solve that problem? Because that was a big benefit to a lot of people.
Well, you get spoiled when things like that do happen. And then when it doesn't happen, then you're back to where you were.
And also, it's this idea where is that going to be the new normal when a lot more big projects happen, or was 2020 when all that stuff happened just sort of the odd man out? And it's a fair question.
I think 2020 was an anomaly, to be honest. I think it was out of the norm. I think you took 2020 out of the equation and looked at the rest of the year.
This is what I mean, where there are consequences, and I don't know what those consequences are. It could be that everybody got spoiled in 2020 on Kickstarter, and now we're back to a more normal position, and then maybe once every 5 years we have a year like 2020 on Kickstarter.
I think that's kind of where I would set that 2020 is an anomaly that kind of happened, and we should have taken advantage of it whenever we could.
I mean, I took advantage of 2020. My entire social media grew by 10x, which is amazing at a $300 cost.
Which, if you continue keeping in contact and having those engaged, then it's just going to keep growing, and you benefited in the long run from it.
Right now, my growth is probably about a 5x, just because 2020 was off, but 5x every year, and that growth is phenomenal. I mean, that's a win for me in many ways, is what I feel. But I'm doing some of my best work. But I digress right there, in which that because things are now shifting again, where things are opening up again. So obviously it's getting interesting what's going on. And also we're entering this summer, and when we enter the summer, this is a bad time for podcasters.
Yeah,
everybody's outside playing frisbee.
Everybody's outside enjoying the sun.
Everybody's sitting outside having a beer, including myself. So I understand. There's a reason why I did almost 70 interviews in the first 5 months of the year. Yeah. I knew what was going to happen. I've been doing this forever. Yeah. So having said all that, let's talk about COVID, because 2020, this kind of leads into it, was a fucking nightmare for everybody. San Diego didn't happen. I think the last count was what, C2E2, the last March in 2020. I think I want to say the last major con, I should say, and things are starting to open up back again. But I feel like it's going to be a very slow, tedious, experimental process to get back to normalness in many ways. And I feel like there's going to be a lot of trial and error, and it's going to be very interesting what's going on. And personally, I'm just waiting to see where the dust settles.
Yeah. Well, I think all of us had to kind of trim some of the fat and kind of see what was important and focus on what was important, and, you know, take care of our families, take care of our own health. You know, so, and I was crazy enough to start a publishing company in 2010. So, I mean, it didn't hurt for doing it. I mean, it was actually a good timing. And it also gave entertainment to people that were, you know, captive audiences.
I kept you busy too. Probably was a distraction in a lot of ways. Yeah. I could tell you that for April, May, and June, I didn't leave my apartment for 3 months in the first 3 months of COVID. There was no need to. Right. And I got all my mail. I ordered food anyway. I lived in an apartment building, and I could tell you that after 3 months, the first time I left my apartment, I'm like, wow, this is kind of cool.
See, to be honest, not a whole lot changed for me. I mean, I still pretty much did exactly what I always did. You know, me and my wife.
The only thing that changed for me was that I didn't get to go to wrestling shows. That's the only thing that changed, was that my favorite activity to do, or one of them, was going to watch people wrestle. Yeah. Professional wrestling, not Roman Greco grappling, professional wrestling, like with the ring and all. And that was the only thing that changed for me.
Yeah, it did kill the conventions for me. But
so speaking about that, where do you think that cons are going? Because obviously things are starting to come back, and obviously he's saying hi. If Jim, if you want to come on the show, shoot me a DM on my page. Absolutely. But where do you think?
I'll be able to tell you in a month, because I'll hit my first convention. It'll be the Salina Comic Con, and then I'll have the Enid Comic Con, and then Wichita Falls Comic Con. So those are the three I'll be doing this year.
So I know cons are coming back, and obviously, you know, I actually just moved from Washington, D.C. Otherwise, I would be going in August to Awesome Con. I moved back to Connecticut, so I'm not as familiar with the con scene in the Northeast. I've been gone for 5 years. So I did submit to a Hartford Comic Con, but I'm also, I'm also very much now trimming my fat on what I want to do. And so that's something where I'm picking what I want to do. I'm picking where I want to present and things like that. So obviously, are you shifting in that realm where you're being very selective now where you want to go? Because I know that people are now reevaluating, saying, hey, you know, maybe
I'm always selective. I mean, I usually just do stuff within driving distance, and usually it shows that I'm friends with the promoters. So, or the publisher would bring me out, but since now I'm the publisher, it's me bringing me out.
So, because going to a con, for those who don't know, you got to prep up material, you got to bring material, you got to stay in a hotel, you get food ads up, buying a table, you know, being at your table for, 20 hours over 3 days. It's a lot of work. I haven't done it, I don't want to do it. There's a reason why I run an eBay business. I don't want to do it. It seems, no offense to anybody who does it, it seems miserable. It seems miserable. It seems like a lot of work.
You have to be a road warrior. Yeah, you sure do.
And I am no thank you. I got enough stuff. I present panels, and then I get to go walk around, and I have a blast, and I got a free ticket to a con for a reason. But I like to be paid for that, sure. But right now, it's awesome what I'm doing.
I love meeting the fans and the kids and fellow vendors that I've known for years. That's my favorite part. It's just the social interaction.
Well, my favorite part of being a panelist is I talk about comic book investing, and I like making people and saving people. Right. I love that because I like talking about money. You know the scene when Deadpool is sniffing the guns?
Yeah, that's you with the money? That's
me with like two $50 bills. Fresh off the presses, smell the inks, and then I'm like, oh my God, my head, the inks. But that's me, and I love it. So obviously that's how I'm viewing cons, is that my view is I'm going to become more selective, and I'm also going to be more selective on what I speak about, because I want to speak out what I want to speak about, and if con doesn't want me, that's cool. And I'm also very much a 50-mile radius, just because it's cheaper that way. I could do 50 miles over a night. I don't stay in a hotel, and then I'll drive 50 miles back, and it's perfectly fine for me. But yeah, unless somebody's going to pay me to fly out somewhere, I have no desire to fly 1,500 miles on my dime.
I'll drive about 5 hours. I think it's the longest, 5 to 6 hours. Usually it's around an hour or 4 hours, 3 hours, somewhere in there.
Because it is exhausting and it's complicated and I just don't want to do it. You know, I might be writing something and I don't know if I'm going to do cons because I think I could be way more effective on here. And I could reach more people, and I've reached people from all over the world on this show, and I can't do that at a convention. And legitimately, I have gotten more fans by doing stuff like this than I've ever gotten at a con. And I've gotten more fans and more page likes on Facebook and more views and stuff, and more people who actually DM me and say, hey, man, that was awesome, by Facebook ads. Yeah. I have legitimately for $15 on a Facebook ad, I can bring in 50 page likes, and out of those 50 page likes, I get like 20 people who actually retain and watch this stuff, which is awesome.
Yeah. You know, and something I think that happened out of 2020 is a lot of people saw, I'm really not making much money at the conventions. By the time you add everything in, I mean, I cut them out, and I'm doing better than I was if I was going to them because I didn't have to spend as much. So I think a lot of artists actually kind of saw that. So they are reevaluating that, and they're going to be more strategic about the cons that they do.
So Tom was speaking about this very thing where he's now becoming a lot more strategic. And I think a lot of people are as well. And I also think that these types of shows are only going to increase. I could tell you that the first 3 months of 2020, nobody was doing anything like this. I was out there alone, and I capitalized, and then come June, end of June, July, I started seeing a lot of people doing stuff, and I know people who I've interviewed immediately after the interview, a week later, they started something almost identical to what I'm doing here.
Well, see, I was live streaming. I've been live streaming for years on Facebook. And I've connected to a ton of fans that way, and I've gotten commissions that way, and I've gotten jobs that way, just because, you know, I had Peter Mayhew share out my link and get 5,000 or 6,000 hits because he shared it out, or a person off of Star Trek, because I was drawing them, they shared it out, and I was able to connect with all those fans. So I knew the value of doing the live streams and stuff before COVID even hit, because I'd started it 4 or 5 years ago.
Every person who's into comics, where there's now been a influx, and I would say there's 50 to 60 shows like this now. Yeah. When last year, this time, there was maybe 10. That's a big spike, and probably that's a very conservative number. Yeah. But I just dropped. But hey,
I think COVID caused that, 2020.
I love it. I'm a competition guy, because when there's more competition and I have to go to new places, I have to find new people, I have to find new marketing strategies, I have to find new people who become bigger, and I have to evolve faster and because of COVID, I was doing pre-recorded, I got into live, and then I dropped Ecamm, got into StreamYard, and obviously I'm evolving very rapidly, and it's crazy. So,
Well, you know, in business, if you don't evolve, you're dying, is the thing, you know. And I think a lot of times too many artists sit back and they don't see the business side of it. So they get stagnant until they're forced to change. And when the status quo is messed up, then they have to change. And then they're trying to play catch up. So you're either evolving or you're dying.
And I could tell you, and I can't go into too much detail at the moment because it's still being worked out, but because I did an interview with somebody, there is now a business opportunity for me to make a lot of money in a very, very, very reoccurring way. Very, very, and the sky's the limit. And because I just hit up the right person at the right time, reached out and handled it, and I can't go into it too much because we're still finalizing it. And I had a busy day and I couldn't get to getting back to the person, but it's going to be finalized in the next week, which means that the business is going to take off. It's going to be very exciting. And if I didn't do this interview stuff, it would have never happened. And so obviously when we talk about evolution, I mean, if you're not evolving, then you're going to die. Evolution is a necessity. It's either you evolve or die. Nope. And I've gone through multiple evolutions in the last 5 months. I've gone through many in the last all 2020. I probably went through about 6, which is ludicrous to me because when you're doing 90 interviews, you evolve very quickly and you become very good at shit.
Oh, okay. Hey, for instance, you can look at David Bowie. Look at how many times he reinvented himself through his career. It was almost every time he released an album, he reinvented himself. You know, and if artists actually looked at that and said, hey, you know, I periodically need to evaluate myself, my business model, the products that I do, and I may need to reinvent myself going into the next year or going into the next 5 years or whatever it is. You know, look at how David Bowie did each of the things that he did, you know, going into music. He was reinventing himself hundreds of times over so that he would stay fresh and new to those, and he would get new viewers and keep his old, you know, viewers or listeners, you know. And artists, I think, need to do that same thing. You know, we have to reinvent ourselves and still keep our base fans, but go in and get new fans because we either did a new project or we did a new thing that maybe we don't like. And maybe we did more podcasts. Maybe we did, you know, I particularly don't like coming on shows.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No. I'm glad that we've got to. It's one of those things where I forced myself to get out. And I started that in 2020 because usually when I did my live streams, all you would see is my hand on the paper. You wouldn't see my face. I didn't talk a whole lot unless people were just shooting me messages.
So I completely understand your position. And because I'm the worst at getting on shows. Like I like conducting shows. Yeah. I am the worst to get on shows because nobody wants to talk to me about podcasting. What people want to talk to me about, though, is comic book investing. And what I'm now finding is I'm reaching out to a lot of people and they're like, this is awesome. And like I did like a bunch of shows about 3 weeks ago. I was like, oh, this is fun. And so I'm becoming very active on the flip side of this. And it's crazy. And I think it's super important for people to now get out there. You know, it's wild.
We can't always stay in our comfort zone. You know, we have to step out of our comfort zone sometimes. And sometimes that means for an artist that's new, that hadn't done a con, they might need to do a convention. For somebody that doesn't live stream and do their artwork, maybe they need to do that. Maybe it's drawing something that you've never drawn or writing something you've never written.
Or I'll give another one. There's a lot of foreign artists, international artists, and English is not their first language. Maybe, you know, you got to come on somebody's show who is extremely patient, who's not going to misguide you, and that you need to get on shows even though English is not your first language, because it is super important to be able to interact. And because a lot of international artists who English is not their first language, who are in the United States or even global, is your fans want to hear from you. And it's super important in that regard. And I think it's a big hurdle. And I understand that if English is not your first language, I am not beating anybody up for that. That's not what this is. And I understand your concern, and it's legitimate. But you know what it is? Find somebody who's gonna handle you and not sandbag you, and do it, because if you do enough, then you're going to be very comfortable, and then all of a sudden, you could be on like 15 shows, and it could equal a lot of money on the right shows.
Well, I mean, the exposure that you would get, and then that leads to jobs. That's it. You have to look at the business part of it too. You can't just, and a lot of times for an artist to step out of their comfort zone, they have to deal with the business part of it. The contracts, the phone calls, the looking at scripts, the editing scripts, the booking hotels, the going to conventions, the making deals and wheeling dealing, the going to dinners after the cons to actually cement those deals.
Unless you're Elias Chatsoudas, who legitimately pumps out like 25 commissions in 3 days. That guy is a sick motherfucker. That guy is sick. In which that he can pump out like bus size commissions. And I think I was at a con, I got one from him. It's an awesome book, and I love it. And then he needs to come on. I'm working on him. But anyway, he pumps out because his commission list gets filled up with like 25. He does all 25 in 2.5 days. He doesn't guy goes back to his hotel and he just pumps them out. It's amazing. It's amazing. He's a sick motherfucking artist, and he's amazing, and it's unbelievable. And I think he does covers for like companies in like 4 to 6 hours. And I'm like, how do you do this? Like how does your brain work this way? My brain does not work this way at all. If my brain can work 100th the way his does, man, I would be a phenomenal artist.
Right.
100th is all that.
There's so many great artists out there. It's
wild.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But on that note, I do want to give you an opportunity to promote yourself, because obviously we're talking about a lot of other people, and covered a lot of your work. So obviously, where can people back Mojo Rising? I think I put the link up above. Obviously, where can people find your other work and pick that stuff up? Where can people find you on Kickstarter and follow your Kickstarters? Obviously, Voodoo Nations are going to promote as well, and a variety of other people. So. And social media, obviously, Instagram's the big one for a lot of artists. ArtStation is another big one that's super important right now. DeviantArt, I don't know if DeviantArt is still around. I'm horrendous at this.
I've been on there for years though. Hey, there's Marianne.
I like your image, Marianne. I really like that image.
If we get it unlocked, we actually have a Marianne Childress and a Russell Oldham piece of art for Mojo Rising. We're gonna have to make a little bit more money to unlock that one though. You can find us at Third Empire 2020 on Facebook and Instagram. I believe it's the same thing. It's Third Empire or Greg Harms, and I'm also Greg Harms on Facebook. The Kickstarter, you can type in Mojo Rising, RISEN, and it'll bring up both the last one and this one that you can click on. And
do you have an email list? Because that's big.
I have a little bit of one. That's one thing that I should have been building over the last 20 years, but I am building up the email list as we go along. There's actually a spot on the Third Empire 2020 if you're on a computer that you can hit subscribe, and you can subscribe to the email list. So we are building that up, as well as the Mojo Rising comic series is on
super important.
Super Outlaw Studios is on Facebook, and of course Manuel Soto, Artex Badillo, Raj Mahan, Damian Starr, Jim O'Reilly, Keith Braun, the Creative Knots guys, Rick Tyndall, Florentino Santibanez, or just Santibanez, and Lou Graziani are all on Facebook as well. And then we have the contributing artist, Ken Salinas is on Facebook, and then Shiloh James, who is, he doesn't go by Shiloh on Facebook. I can't remember what. Anyway, if we get to a certain level coming up, we might see something unlocked from there too as well.
So obviously there's a lot of stuff, and then I've been saying it all along. I said it an hour and a half ago with my first interview of the night, and I'm going to say it again here, is that you have to support indie. What that means is that obviously if there's a Kickstarter going on, you have to back Kickstarters. That, you know, whether it's a digital reward, a physical reward, you know, whether that's a souped up variant reward or just the regular copy, it is super important, or just digitally, it is super important, because that does go a long way. You know, back in digital, it is tremendous. And while it might only be $8, you know, if 100 people do an $8 thing, that's $800 that furthers it and gets it published out there. So that is super helpful. Also, if you are not backing something on Kickstarter and somebody has a store, whether that's on Etsy or eBay or anything like that, obviously buying directly from people after things get outside of Kickstarter, because not everything's put on Kickstarter, or there's extras sometimes. That's a full backer kit, or it's backer share, or I'm not too sure what it is exactly now, because they're rolling out new things all the time.
Yeah.
But obviously that stuff is also super helpful as well when you're backing.
Well, and they can always contact us directly if they want to buy something as well. You know, original art, the comics, anything like that. So.
And obviously there's other stuff out there that's been done where, you know, it might not be on Kickstarter, but something might be, you know, there's probably original art that's not on the Kickstarter, right?
Yeah.
So obviously commissions, I don't know if you have a commission list open, but that's probably also directly contact, and I'm sure that could be worked out, and that's cool too. And you'll draw anything. If anyone wants a Batman commission, you're down for it, for the most part, right?
Yeah, I've done a lot of commissions over the years. Yeah. And
so that's the nice thing about commissions, is that if you are not a Mojo, you know, Rising fan, or you are, but you know, you want something like done in Iron Man, Batman, obviously it's fair game for the most part on that front. So obviously keep that in mind, everybody. And then obviously if you can't support, you know, economically, social media is the way to go. Because I get it, COVID's been tough. It's been a rough year for a lot of people. I know, because I am in an economic situation where I am just shoring up my assets right now. And so I am making sure that I am financially healthy. And so I am taking care of me first, and I'm making sure that I'm stable. Obviously, I just moved back to my parents' house, so I'm with everybody on this front. And so obviously make sure you are financially okay. That means mortgage, rent, electricity, water, food, shelter, all that stuff. Obviously boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife. Kids, if you have kids, make sure your kids are all right. You know, if you got a dog, cat, you know, make sure they're okay too, because that stuff is super important. And if that's the case, then sharing on social media matters, following on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. All the cool kids are on TikTok. Gotta be on TikTok.
We haven't got on TikTok yet. Well,
you gotta be on TikTok.
Santibanez is on TikTok. I'm not on TikTok.
It's amazing. You will accomplish nothing once you get on TikTok. My work productivity went from 150% all the way down to 10%. And I'm amazing pumping out these interviews. Imagine if I was at 150%. I'd be doing interviews in the past and in the future at the same time.
Right, yeah.
Anyway, so obviously, having said all that, but you should be sharing on social media, because it does make a huge difference. And you never know who you're going to share it to and who's going to back it because of that. And on that note, I am going to give you the final word, because my voice is extremely sore now.
Well, we just appreciate everybody that's supported us so far, and you know, have liked and shared or pledged or whatever, because it all does help. And we just thank you for you know, supporting our dreams, and you know, the book that the team is putting out. They put in a lot of hard work. You know, it's a 50 plus page, almost 60-page book is no easy task, and been working on it, and we're funded. So now we're just pushing towards those stretch goals and milestones, and we have 7 days to go now. So thank you. And, there's other books coming out from Third Empire. So if this one's not something you like, then there's going to be something else coming along that you might like.
And I couldn't have said it any better myself. So that is an official wrap.
Thank you, guys.